Dear heads on the wall, dear heads on the wall, always watching you. Hey! Dear heads on the wall, dear heads on the wall, always watching you. Dear hunter shot Bambi, Bambi took the fall, dear heads on the wall, always watching you. Yeah. You're not paranoid if they're out to get you. You're not paranoid if they're out to get you.
Today is the 15th of February. I'm winded because the snow is still really deep up here. So walking through here is a bit of a workout. And like I said last time, I don't really think snowshoes are going to really add a lot to it as far as labor saving, because with the amount of things that you have to maneuver, I don't think that's going to really add any ease to the trip. That being said, I wasn't out last week because conditions in this area at the time would have been about 4 degrees and a 30-mile-an-hour wind chill. So that's where people get into trouble. And by contrast, this week it is 35, and I got to keep my coat open because when you're moving, you are actually working up a sweat. It is going to be interesting to see how far I get today, because it's just that much, either with snowshoes or without. It's just the depth of the snow is a workout. So we'll be burning some calories anyway. So let's get going. And the agenda for today, I don't think the infrasonic thing is on the agenda unless it changes the symptoms of the phenomenon, because normally they would be single-digit temperatures. Last week, maybe too cold. I don't know. It's still a investigation in progress without a definition yet. So with that not being potentially on the agenda, we'll do some tracking. There actually are some tracks this week. One human snowshoer, some squirrel tracks, and some Bambi tracks likely, but we'll see what else we find, if anything interesting is in the neighborhood. Let's get moving, and I'll stop procrastinating and we'll see what we find. But let's hit it. I've walked basically from over there and found this. The way it's set up, this reeks of being man-made. I don't know what purpose for, but maybe somebody who's familiar with the whole stick structure culture is having fun with me or something, but I don't know. The thing I'm going to make the point of, though, just to illustrate the purpose, notice I'm walking around and looking at it from all angles. Some people who shall remain nameless like to just look at it from one angle where it's the most interesting. Just to make the point, that's how deep the snow is. So probably a good foot. Where it hasn't drifted, where it has, it's deeper and goes up to your thighs. So moving around in here is going to be at a slower pace just because it's that much work to get through here. And that's just the nature of the day. So as far as things going on in the community, I would think this is the slow time of the year, because in a lot of the other areas of the world, it's been Not just in New England, it's been a cold winter, which makes getting out interesting. Here we have some tiny little tracks. So that's either a vole or maybe a chipmunk, something small, like smaller than a squirrel too. So signs of life, unlike the last week, but a little warmer now too. The truth of my last time here was what was it? I think with wind chill, it was even then. It was only 8 degrees, and at 8 degrees, things are probably just hunkered down and trying not to freeze to death. And slowly pan and look out and see if there are any other tracks. Even now, there's not a lot though. And they've been out sparingly, whatever's been in the neighborhood, because the Bambi tracks I saw were not fresh by any stretch. So I haven't been here in 2 weeks. They were at least a couple of days old and had been snowed over a little bit too. You can tell by the stride and size and relative shape what they are, but they're not freshly defined by any stretch of the imagination. Maneuvering logs in here is going to be interesting today too, because it's just that deep. You have a slight rise, and I just assume you have to kind of walk over that so you don't. Even if you trip though, there's so much snow depth-wise. You can kind of anchor yourself in here, just going on the volume of snow, as I misjudged a log there and kind of hit the back end of it. So your steps need to be kind of slow and tenuous too, to kind of feel what's underneath you. Whew. I think the only thing that's really still new is the impending expedition for southeastern Connecticut, so we'll be probably doing that. The invite's official now, so we'll be going through that and hopefully meeting some new level-headed people in the crowd that are in the neighborhood that can, if nothing else, we can apply that towards networking in the greater community. I seem to know some of the same people this other Mike knows. So we're not starting from a total blank spot with each other. But I will admit I have not spent a lot of time in this corner of Connecticut. So that's probably an ideal thing from the standpoint that everybody, as far as I know, is kind of stepping into this area for the first time, so nobody has an advantage. But we'll see what happens. I'm not going to speak more to the gentleman's background. That's one, it's kind of his job to self-promote, but also not really my place to. I might think of that myself of a form of doxing, so we'll let him kind of self-market his own situation as I walk through a snowdrift. And the depth is definitely varying from between a foot to knee deep. I just hooked up with the pack down tracks of the snowshoer, which is good and bad because you slide off and it makes walking a little bit more awkward. I think I'm going to stay on the given path I was on of just making my own trail here. I'll kind of parallel the guy and go from there. Although I do applaud somebody having the spirit to get out here off grid and do deep snowshoeing, because it is fun when I didn't know what the conditions were going to be today, and had again some unfortunately some work considerations not totally out of the purview of the day. So not a great likelihood, but you pick a window of the day when you're less likely to be called upon to log in and handle something. But that being the case, I was not of the presence of mind to think of bringing snowshoes, although, again, it's not going to really gain you any speed or with the depth and the maneuvering through various things. It's not really going to gain you anything. If it were deeper, maybe, because I have two sets of snowshoes. One is the smaller maneuverable ones, and then you have the big ones, the tugboats, that would dwarf these. I think this guy's got either the same size I do, or they have the little forest runner types, which in snow this deep is probably not going to really gain you anything. But you never know. It could be a LL Bean type who had new toys they got for Christmas and wanted to come out and play. I can understand that. But the big ones are for when the snow is ridiculously deep and you just have to traverse that depth of snow, and you're going to go slow. And it's kind of like the old school way of why you had snowshoes in the first place, because you had to walk through crazy deep snow in the winter and get somewhere. And probably have the endurance of a fucking ox. Pardon my French. Because this is, even casually walking like this, you're walking through the depth, and it's like every step meets a certain element of resistance. So there's an isometric element to this. Gonna get down to the pond here, take a look around, and again listen in, although every time I've encountered the infrasonic dealie down here, it's been wickedly, wickedly cold. And again, to the former Nezra member, and I say that not because Tom got thrown out, more because Nezra 10 kind of chose to die on the vine. You're describing the ice expanding and contracting in extreme temperatures, and that doesn't sound like a subwoofer giving feedback, which is what I heard. And somewhere I think I had in a video played a sample, maybe. It was weird enough to make you look around and wait for the UFO to show up and fly over your head and hopefully not take you on a less than consensual ride around the solar system. But I'm going to follow this guy because you got a stream somewhere over there, and I don't want to navigate that if I don't have to. Just because things are deeper and you can step in deeper and hyperextend your knee and shit. And if you do that and then have to walk out in that stuff, that's really not going to be fun. So I'm going to get down by the water line, such as you cannot see it, and take a slight segment break. Do some photography, some listening in, and see what's going on, if anything. So far, though, it's really quiet out here today, which is nice and peaceful. Definitely has its benefits for inner peace. Squirrel tracks right here from tree to tree. But we're going to take a segment break, like I said, and we'll be back. So, where last year we had a lot of drifting down here, this year it's actually a little bit more shallow. And as I walk around, I thought I heard some Yodi howls in the distance, which is about right, because this time of year is when they start getting more active looking for Bambi, as Bambi starts struggling to find food and maybe becomes easier prey. It's one time of year when I see them kind of packing up to maybe share that effort. In a more, I'm not going to show you for, if my channel were monetized, I would probably get demonetized, if not have the thing banned or shut down. But in the course of having nature call when you're out in this and you happen to be empty and forgetting because you haven't been out in a week, your emergency roll, if you know what I mean. The question might come to, what do you wipe with? And the answer effectively is, you're standing on it. Kind of like a separating the men from the boys kind of moment. And kind of a weird subject to bring up, but I mean, it does happen out in the woods. You go camping, and if you ever have done primitive camping and you don't have an outhouse nearby, because you're not always going to have one, it is one of those facts of life. And the grim reality is, when you're out here this time of year and this is what you have to work with, two things. Number one, as far as serving the purpose, it gets the job done and does well. Is it pleasant? No. Let's be honest, no. I think I can get away with saying nobody likes a cold bunghole, but it only lasts for about 30 seconds, and then you're done and you move on with your day, so to speak. But it is a fact of life. And as an aside, if you want to throw some misogyny into this, when it comes to genders and how they handle this situation, I'm actually not going to be busting on the ladies. I'm actually going in the opposite direction. I've had two groups of people I've been out with where this has been observable. And when it comes to the people that were in Nezra for the longest time, no offense, and I won't name names, I have never seen such elaborate rituals to avoid doing what I just spoke of. But you don't always have the ability to pick your spot, as they say. Whereas a few times I've been out where a woman has had to go and do things like that, she will quietly and stoically get up, walk off into the distance. Her husband will call out and say, "What's going on?" She's like, "I got to take care of nature." And she does, and people accept it for what it is, allow her a moment of privacy. She does what she does, and then she comes back. No muss, no fuss. And I honestly have to say that beyond myself and my example, women tend to be the better troopers out here with that. And I don't mean that as any kind of an insult. I don't mean it with any kind of humor at their expense. I mean, when it comes to survival skills, actually, and I'm not going to mention names, but a former boss was a troop leader, and he told me about a time when his youngster kind of figured things out on the fly, too. And I looked at him and said, you know what, I consider that to be a life skill, actually. The fact that you actually just accept the fact that the need is there and you take care of business and then you move on with your day. I mean, fucking cavemen did it for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. Every time you think we know how old mankind is in our relatively present form, it keeps going back. So, yeah. Anyway, just thought I'd share that little graphic moment, because every now and then you get the raw, unfiltered reality of being out here in the woods, and that's kind of what I show out here. I don't really sugarcoat what's out here. What happens as it happens. A lot of time it's a whole lot of quiet, like it is now, other than me yapping, but that is the case. But yeah, if there's any kind of gender-related things going on, anyone who wants to say women are dainty in the woods, bullshit. If they are, there are the kind of women, and no offense to my better half, but she'll come right out and say she's not woodsy and doesn't want to come out here. But the way she handles that is she doesn't come out here. And that is the way that a person not woodsy handles that. They hang back at the end, which is when I go to Vermont in certain times of year, that's what she does, and that's fine. I'd rather have somebody play to their comforts like that rather than go out into the woods with me and become a liability and or a burden. And I don't mean that as an insult. I just, if you're going to be miserable and not enjoy your time out there, why would you go? It's that simple. Because this is not for everyone. I mean, I think it's beautiful out here right now. I think it's perfectly quiet, and you're not going to have more peace than this time of year. When it's just quiet like this, and you know there's no one else out here. Also kind of gauging as we go from a hunter's point of view, how far out you can see where if there is movement. Because a couple times I've been out here this time of year when the snow gets harder and crunchier, and you could actually hear things crunching in the woods, because I've had that happen before. I think it was actually over in that direction. We heard something crunching, and I'd been tracking moose tracks, and I suddenly came to the possibility in my mind that you might actually be like in close proximity to the moose, so it's kind of in your best interest to know where he is to avoid surprise. Because the thing about a moose, if you don't realize it, is they have big noses and big ears. They can hear you well, they can smell you well, but their eyesight sucks, so they're going to probably visually bump right up on you. And if you have that happen and you alarm them, you have an 8 out of 10 in my best estimate per chance they're going to bolt the other way and make a racket going through the woods on a level of noise that you will definitely know what it is. But you also have that one chance that they spook you and they charge you. That's dicey. That is honestly dicey. And I mean, granted, it's not a predator pursuing you. So if you were to go out here and kind of break up their eyesight by, zigzagging through the trees on a day like this in snow this deep, you're going to have a hard time doing that. Hopefully it's a bluff charge. Otherwise, he's going to mow you down and stomp on you with very big hooves, and that's going to fuck you up bad. That's not a situation you're going to, I mean, you may not die, but you're going to freaking be busted up. And let me step over that log. I actually did come across an interesting topic. It's not necessarily Bigfoot related, but it might affect my outdoors activities. There is talk in the Vermont legislature of reintroducing mountain lions into the Green Mountains. Now, I'd make an argument they're probably already there because enough people have reported seeing them. There have been bodies taken from Connecticut of mountain lions. They are here. They may not live here. They may just pass through. I don't personally buy that because people in a nearby town, hunters, hikers, have seen a resident one for years. And I think I told this story before. One guy, he's from Ireland, and he didn't know the term. But he described, I'm like, so describe what you saw. And he described, I just looked at him like, you just described a mountain lion to a T. He's like, yeah, I saw that cross the road. It was probably the size of a large German Shepherd. I'm like, okay, that's about right. And if it has a long tail with a black dot on the end, that's not a bobcat. So if they do that, the core of the debate is you're putting an apex predator into a freaking environment where they have not been as a rule for a long time. So you are fucking with that balance. And what is the liability for the state and or the Forestry Service? I didn't read which part he was doing. Think of this. It sounds like it's on a state level. But if you do that and then somebody who is backpacking or hiking gets mauled by one of these things, which is not impossible, what's your liability then? Because you did this willfully. Let me go over there and see what those tracks are. But let me be perfectly clear. Of all the things out here, non-Squatch related, normal things out here that you could run into in the way of animals, you have voles, which ironically are mildly venomous, if depending on the size, but you would actually have to pick it up, handle it, and get bit by it, and even then it's not going to kill you unless you had a weird allergy. Squirrels, chipmunks, your like critter level stuff, possums, porcupines, raccoons, that kind of thing. Left to their own design, non-rabid, because I'm not going to say that raccoons are harmless, because I think I told you a couple weeks back on the neighborhood walking trail, I was attacked by a freaking rabid one, which is disconcerting, because once you realize how nasty they can be, they're big enough that they are a little bit scary. Moving into bobcats, they generally, I mean, there's one in this neighborhood. I've never seen him, but I've seen tracks and spraying patterns, so they are here. I think he's on the other side of the creek, though. Deer, 99 times out of 100 are not aggressive unless you spook one and corner it, and they can attack, though. And those little hooves are pointy. I've actually seen a couple of weird cases where they were in the rut and they were not really that fussy on what they wanted to rub up against, and they tend to go for females, but I mean, like female humans, and they want to kind of put you in an awkward little spot. But that has happened, although that's not the norm. I wouldn't worry about that. But then you have moose, and moose are ornery under certain conditions, and when it's the time of the rut, they are dangerous. I would avoid them. Black bears are obviously a potential danger, although my run-ins with them have largely been them walking. Let's say you had one walking through right there at a distance of like 50 feet. If he looks up and sees you here just standing here looking at him, he's going to probably keep going that way. Unless you had food or something or some reason to attract his attention. Other than that, he probably doesn't care that you're there. That brings us to like coyotes and coy dogs. 99 times out of 100, they are not dangerous to humans, even this time of year. I have seen them out in this time of year. And a coy dog is not a small animal. It is the size of a police dog-sized German Shepherd. They're big. But they still have an elusive shyness of humans that is learned. What the fuck was that? I just heard a solid thump. Hold on for a second. felt it too. Maybe not. You'll keep listening. But the point I'm going towards, mountain lions. You see one in here. That's the one animal out here that if it takes interest in you out here, it is sizing you up as lunch, and that is genuinely dangerous. So if they were to reintroduce them, they're changing the dynamic out there. There are some very remote areas in Vermont where that could be an issue. I actually have been attacked by a coy dog in Vermont, although to this day I still think it was a matter on its part of mistaken identity. The minute it saw a human, it did disengage quickly, but when you're in the middle of nowhere and you see a black streak of canine coming right at you at full speed, that is disconcerting. I didn't wet myself, but the urge did occur to me. Those moments are character testing moments. Been there, done that. Don't care to do it again. So that's an interesting thing. I want to say state level again is doing that. I know that coy dogs, they may have a wolf population in the upper level of Vermont too, because there was a population that came down, if I remember reading this right, from Quebec. And unlike humans and all the contention along the border, without delving into politics, wolves don't give a shit. And there really is no major geological feature in that area that's keeping out that or mountain lions or anything else. That's why when people tell you they're not here, what's keeping them out? There is no mountain range. There is no insufferable pass that they can't get by, that they can't find their way here. The one that was taken out of Darien, Connecticut came from South Dakota. They get around. And the thing about wolves is every time there's a new generation of wannabe alpha males, the alpha keeps the power that he has in the pack by driving out the rivals. So they spread out over time, and that's how you have situations where they find their way into northern Vermont and the like. I think we've actually had one in Goshen a couple years ago too, where somebody I knew in the deep Connecticut's answer to the DNR, if that's a word that you use in your state. There was a sheep farm, and there was a canine that got into the sheep, was killing them, and the farmer finally found him and shot him, and they took the animal in question to put him on a lab and did the genetic testing, and it came back as Canis lupus, which is timber wolf. So never say never. The one thing we don't have in here that I would have found, because they wouldn't be hiding that well, and knock on wood, we don't need them fucking up our ecosystem here, are like wild pigs, which are nasty too. Down south they have them, and I remember seeing that thing. I don't know if it's actually real or not, but there was a guy that shot one in his yard, and it was like called Hogzilla. The thing was huge. You saw that in your backyard, you got your kids out there. My God, that's dicey. That's frightening. This was like a prehistoric level sized pig. The thing was huge. Like an 800-pound pig. Bring him to the state fair, you're going to win that hands down. Anyway, enough on that thought. I'm going to try to move over kind of that way, lower tier. Because I tracked up north, I'll kind of work my way, work a loop through here if I do nothing else. It's just, I'd like to go further in, but with the level of the depth in here, it's just kind of, it's slow going in here. You kind of just have to methodically plod through, and it's more a day to be observational. And I'm guessing that thump was a one-time. It could have been anything. It could be any one of a number of things. But anyway, we're going to take a segment break, and we're going to continue. And it wouldn't hurt if I was listening in for that. But anyway, we'll do that, and we'll be back in a bit. Back, we're on the northern side of a relative loop. We're going through this general area. So far, I've seen basically deer tracks and rodent tracks, mix of squirrels and other smaller stuff. This, on the other hand, is a bigger stride. Do we have a moose? That's a moose. I will get pictures of this, so I'll probably be doing I think it's a moose. It has to be, because a deer isn't going to get through this stuff this deep with a stride that big. Or is that... No, it's got to be a moose. The fuck is... Let's have a look. Just when you think you're not going to find something, you find something. No, down in there, that's a moose. Alright, I'm going to be back in a second, but I am going to not try to fumble two hands and two cameras, so I'll be back in a moment. Yeah, that was definitely a moose. It's just too deep to make the point. Again, snow is not quite to your knee, but it's thigh. It's like mid shin deep, and deep enough that a deer's just not going to have a 6-foot stride in this stuff this deep. Here's another set of tracks. I was going to wrap the video up, and now I'm finding where the interesting tracks are. These are not as far apart though. These are probably deer. Just need one well-defined hoof. Yeah. Those are deer tracks. What I'm going to do when I get to the way out up here though is I'm going to put this away, wrap up the video tentatively before then, because the last time I did this, to my embarrassment, there's an icy slick under there and I ended up on my backside. Not to the point of any injury other than my pride, but you know, only my pride, as the saying goes. But well, it's probably a lot harder to walk, to fall down in stuff this deep. I've caught myself kind of not totally on balance, and you still can kind of catch yourself because the weight, the snow kind of acts as an anchor because it's so deep. So that's kind of a weird, ironic positive. Anyway, it's a quiet day, a little warmer. I thought I might be sweating. It's actually kind of a break-even day. I'm not warm, not cold. I have long johns on as a base layer, along with a fleece over that, fleece pants, and I'm basically good. The temp when I got here was, bearing in mind there's not really a lot of wind today, so a slight breeze, but not anything with any real wind chill. So the real feel is like 30 degrees, as opposed to last week, which honestly, if I was out in that cold, it's probably kind of dangerous. 4 degrees with a wind chill, with like whatever you get from 30-mile-an-hour winds. I think they said the real feel is going to be something in the neighborhood of between -60 and -20. And that's not hypothermia, that's full-on frostbite. You come back and you have to saw off your freaking ring finger because they turned black and died. No thank you. I'm good. Haven't ever gone through that, and I'm not going to. Not for the camera, sorry, not doing it. There are a lot of other people that are potential dumbasses out there on TikTok and the like that will do dumb shit for your entertainment. And not that it matters right now, pertinent to my own activity, but it'll be a cold, dead day in hell before I have a TikTok account for just the brain dead shit I have on. I don't want to. I see enough of that shit on YouTube. I don't need to see it on actual TikTok. I'm good not doing that. So the Chinese government does not need to monitor my activities, and even though the current administration here has threatened to ban them, made deals with them in order to not have that happen, I still call bullshit. It's still those evil little commie bastards are still watching us. Yeah, fuck you, China. Your dude looks like freaking Winnie the Pooh, even though he doesn't, and there's not a damn thing you can do to send your secret police guys over here. That's what ICE is for over here, I guess. Okay, I got political, sorry. Anyway, we're not touching that one with a 10-foot pole for today, because that's not why I do this. Anyway, we're going to say the following, and then we're going to shut the heck up. Like, subscribe, leave comments as you see fit. Tell me what you'd like to see me do. If you have any pertinent thoughts to the kind of activity. I mean, you're kind of limited this kind of year because you have deep snow. I think next week, if it maintains this level of depth, though, I might just bring the snowshoes for giggles. See if it does make a difference. I don't think it will, but you never know. I'd bring the smaller ones, not the bigger ones, because the bigger ones are kind of they're so big that you can, if you get into a tight maneuvering spot in this stuff, you can actually have them be counterproductive. But until then, it is the 15th of February. It is Valentine's Day. So if you have somebody who you have a Valentine for, and have a great time with them, and we will catch you on the next one. But until then, I have to get ready so I can do this gracefully. This camera and I are still not quite on the same page, but anyway, until next time, thanks for watching, and bye.